future of the Western Balkans is a priority for the Biden administration. For many of us, this is personal. President Biden has been deeply involved in these issues since he sat on this committee. Secretary Blinken, USAID Administrator Power, who was just in Kosovo and Serbia last week, and many of us have engaged on these issues since the violent breakup of Yugoslavia in the early 1990s. Our policy is grounded on a simple principle of Europe whole, free, prosperous, and at peace is in our national security interests. But unfortunately, the Western Balkans remains a missing piece of the puzzle. European integration has not been easy. The obstacles, Mr. Chairman, as you've noted, have been formidable, from anti-democratic leaders to corruption, weak rule of law, cyber attacks, underdeveloped infrastructure, economic barriers, dependence on Russian energy, ethnic and religious strife, the list goes on and on. Nevertheless, it's important for us to remember how much potential there is in the Western Balkans. The countries of the Western Balkans have come a long way since the wars of a quarter century ago, and they have tremendous potential for greater prosperity. But they need our help to overcome their challenges and bridge their lingering divides. So let's start with one of the most significant challenges we face, and that's the relationship between Kosovo and Serbia. Kosovo is a sovereign, independent, democratic country. It's one of our closest friends and partners. It often punches above its weight, and the United States supports Kosovo's full recognition. And we support its integration into international institutions, including the United Nations, and we look forward to Kosovo getting closer to NATO and the European Union, and eventually joining those institutions. Yet the European aspirations of both Kosovo and Serbia will not happen until they resolve their differences, and that's why we have strongly supported the EU-facilitated dialogue. Now, following months of intensive diplomacy led by the EU, there's a path to normalizations in which both countries fulfill their independent obligations. And my colleague, Special Representative Escobar, has been an active participant in these talks and can speak to them in greater detail. This agreement can bring real benefits to Kosovo and Serbia. It represents a significant breakthrough in overcoming the cycle of crises that has characterized the relationship between these two countries for far too long. But this is very fragile. Hard work remains, political courage is required, and we will continue to engage both parties so that they fulfill their mutual commitments. And as we continue to support Kosovo, we're also committed to deepening our partnership with Serbia and developing closer ties to the Serbian people. And I want to stress we do so with our eyes wide open. Serbia has significant challenges, from corruption to Russian-fueled disinformation. Our history together has been very difficult, and the relationship has not been easy. Yet it is in our interest to help Serbia realize its full potential and come closer to the Euro-Atlantic community and closer to the United States. Second, we are also focused on the serious challenges in Bosnia-Herzegovina. 28 years after Dayton, there is still peace in Bosnia-Herzegovina, but Mr. Chairman, as you noted, it is a very uneasy peace. Pervasive corruption, democratic backsliding, increasingly inflammatory rhetoric by ethno-nationalist leaders. This is deeply troubling, and it attacks the very foundations of the Dayton Agreement. We have made clear that we oppose such actions, and we will impose consequences. We remain deeply committed to Bosnia-Herzegovina's territorial integrity and sovereignty, its Euro-Atlantic integration, and the full implementation of Dayton. Third, Montenegro. It's a valued NATO ally, and we are optimistic that the recent presidential election there is a signal that Montenegrins are ready to overcome their differences, advance their EU membership prospects, and secure a better future. We urge the new leadership of Montenegro to focus on reforms, particularly to strengthen the rule of law and combat the influence of corruption and organized crime. Finally, we strongly support the further European integration of North Macedonia and Albania. Again, they are terrific NATO allies, and last July, they opened their own EU accession negotiations, which we strongly support. Mr. Chairman, the Western Balkans is Europe's inner courtyard. Completing its transatlantic integration contributes to a stronger Europe and a stronger transatlantic family. It's also essential, as you noted, in a geostrategic context to reduce the influence of malign actors like Russia and the PRC that seek to destabilize the region and undermine our alliance. Our work in the Western Balkans drives toward a fundamental goal: to help develop democracies that are stronger, more transparent, and less corrupt, where engaged citizens hold their governments accountable, and where everyone can benefit from the opportunities that come from greater regional integration and economic prosperity.
The United States is working closely with European partners and allies to ensure that the door to transatlantic institutions remains open, then the path to membership in the European Union remains credible and concrete. At the same time, the countries of the Western Balkans must implement reforms necessary to qualify for that membership. We're helping them build capacity to fight the pervasive corruption and the disinformation that make the region more susceptible to malign influence, and to resolve the lingering tensions that continue to threaten regional stability and integration. And our work in the Western Balkans also strengthens Europe as a geostrategic global partner. As the Councillor noted, a major obstacle to enduring peace and prosperity in the Western Balkans is the fraught relationship between Serbia and Kosovo. The EU facilitated agreement on the path to normalization of relations and its implementation annex, agreed to in February and March, were major steps toward bringing peace and predictability to the relationship. Implementation is underway. On May 2nd, the Serbian president and the Kosovo prime minister began discussions on the association of Serb majority municipalities and reaffirmed their commitment to resolve the fate of missing persons, to foster reconciliation and peace. I have repeatedly traveled to Brussels and across the region to support this process. The United States will remain engaged with Kosovo, Serbia, and our European partners to urge fulfillment of all obligations under the dialogue agreements. For too long, failure to make progress has allowed Russia to play a spoiler role against Serbia's strategic goal of European integration, which the Serbian people strongly desire and we strongly support. Both Serbia and Kosovo must normalize their relations to unleash their full potential and progress on their respective EU paths. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, years of dysfunction and division have plagued state and entity-level governments, undermining the country, its Euro-Atlantic aspirations, and the future of its citizens. Ethno-nationalist political leaders from all constituent peoples, Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks, often pursue narrow personal and political gain rather than public good. The United States is now engaged in an intensive effort to strengthen the international community's work to uphold the Dayton Peace Agreement. The High Representative used his bond powers to ensure that elections were held last October and to break a 4-year deadlock on federation government formation. The United States strongly supported these difficult but necessary decisions. With the new state and entity-level governments in place, we can now help Bosnia and Herzegovina's leaders to implement long overdue reforms and advance their citizens' Euro-Atlantic aspirations. We're deeply alarmed by Republika Srpska President Milorad Dodik's persistent secessionist and anti-democratic actions. In cooperation with European partners, we will work to deter Dodik from pursuing de facto separation and limit resources to fund his divisive practices. We continue to support a robust EU force Operation Althea mission to preserve Bosnia-Herzegovina's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and multi-ethnic character. And the United States will continue to deploy sanctions against those throughout the region who threaten or undermine Bosnia-Herzegovina's institutions or the Dayton Peace Agreement. But there are also bright spots in the region, and not coincidentally, there are NATO members. In Montenegro, we are seeing renewed momentum to realize its European future. Recent presidential elections were smooth. Montenegro reestablished a quorum on its constitutional court. Its leaders must now fill the remaining court vacancy and other critical judicial appointments. We hope to see free and fair parliamentary elections on June 11th, and that the newly elected leaders will heed the call of the people and move quickly on needed reforms to advance Montenegro's EU integration. Both Albania and North Macedonia have opened EU accession negotiations. Both are helpful partners in supporting normalization between Serbia and Kosovo, and like Croatia and Montenegro, both are stalwart NATO allies. To further its EU aspirations, North Macedonia is committed to enacting a constitutional change to recognize its Bulgarian minority. We strongly support this difficult but necessary step. Iran's devastating cyber attacks on Albania last year underscore that we must continue to assist allies and partners in the region to strengthen their security. The United States has committed approximately $50 million in cybersecurity assistance to Albania for its civilian and military sectors. It's one of our largest cyber support contributions to any individual country to date. To close, as we work to help create a stronger Western Balkans within a stronger Europe, continued congressional interest and engagement on the Western Balkans is invaluable.